Hello everyone, FPL Raptor here and welcome back to another video on my YouTube channel. In today's video, we're going to be going through my Game Week 23 preview. As always, I ask for your questions over on Twitter and you give me your discussion points, dilemmas, any advice that you need for the upcoming game week. In today's video, we're actually going to focus on captaincy due to Salah still being at AFCON and there being no real standout this week. It is a major discussion point, so we will be jumping into that straight away. If you are enjoying the content here on this channel, please do remember to like, comment and subscribe. But without further ado, let's jump into today's video. So guys, as I said, we're going to be jumping straight into a captaincy discussion this week. Now, normally in the Game Week preview videos, I leave captaincy till the very end, but about 60 to 70% of the questions this week were around captaincy. As I said, with Salah at AFCON, we've been struggling a little bit anyway, but there have been standout options this week, each week. I would say this week in particular, it is incredibly tricky to choose captaincy. A lot of the players that play for the better teams with the better underlying statistics don't have the best fixtures, as we'll discuss in a second, and it does make it really, really tricky. So what I will do, as always, is I will present the information to you. I'll give you a bit of an opinion and hopefully that'll allow you to come to the best, most informed decision you can and make and own your own decisions. As always, that is the motto on this channel. So for those of you that are new to the channel, what we've got here is we've got a lot of different underlying statistics, individual underlying statistics for each of the top captaincy options, in my opinion. After we've done that, we'll then go through the team attacking statistics. So for Raphinha, we'll look at Leeds attacking statistics, and then we'll also look at the fixture, i.e. the defense of the team that they're playing against. So in that way, we're getting a complete, thorough analysis of the captaincy options. With respect to the color scheme we've got here, if the statistic is in bright green, it means it is the best of the players listed here. If it's a slightly more faded green, you can say it's second/third. And if it's a very, very faded green, you can say it's sort of fourth, fifth. And then if it's white, it's not in the top 4 or 5 underlying statistics there. What we've actually got is we've got goals and assists per 90 as the first 2 columns. That just gives you a general idea of their actual output. We've then got touches in the box per 90, which gives you a bit of an idea about how involved they're getting. We've got non-penalty expected goals per 90, which gives us a bit of an idea, removing penalties, what their underlying expected data is like. We've got expected assist per 90. We've then got expected goal involvement, which combines the two. And we've got expected FPL points per 90. So hopefully presenting those 7 underlying statistics from an attacking perspective will give you a very, very thorough look of each of these options. Now, there are a few players that aren't on here for different reasons. Obviously, I can only include so many players. So, for example, I haven't got Dennis on there, but I have got King because King has slightly better underlying statistics. But when we discuss Watford in the next section, if you want to captain Dennis, that'll apply there. And also, you might want to go for an Arsenal player if the game goes ahead. But I just didn't know which one to choose. Obviously, there's a couple of niggling injuries, etc. We don't know how hard they were hit by the injuries and COVID, etc. We don't know if the game will go ahead. So, for that reason, I decided to not include Arsenal in this discussion. So, therefore, the options that I've chosen as the top captaincy picks this week is Raphinha, Ronaldo, Jota, KDB, Foden, King, Watkins, and then Cancelo and Trent. The main reason I've included Raphinha and Watkins is just almost like a contingency, just in case they get that double game week. So if they do get a double game week 23, you can understand Raphinha's stats versus Watkins, because I assume if it is a Leeds and Villa double game week in 23, it will probably be those two as the main 2 captaincy options. So all of that being said, who stands out from an individual underlying statistics perspective? As you can see on the list directly above my head, if we're just going purely off of the underlying statistics, and I do like to separate them and then we'll combine at the end, I don't think you can look past Jota. As well as his actual output being the best at 0.62 goals per 90, he's having the most touches in the box per 90 at 7.45. That is approaching the levels of Salah. Salah normally sits around 9.5, 10 touches in the box per 90. He's got by far and away the highest expected goals, non-penalty expected goals on the list at 0.71. The closest to him is Ronaldo at 0.56. Now, Ronaldo probably will have penalties if he's playing, but 0.71 non-penalty expected goals is incredible. Non-penalty expected goals plus expected assists, therefore, is put at 0.93. What that says is when Jota plays 90 minutes, and he should be playing 90 minutes at the moment, with obviously Salah and Mane out at AFCON, he tends to get an expected goal involvement every single game, which is highly impressive. A goal or assist, and expected goal and expected assist every single game. That puts his expected FPL points, the second best on this list, at 7.15. Now, huge caveat here, and this is maybe the only reason that I wouldn't necessarily consider Jota the very, very best, is that these underlying statistics are with Salah and Mane in the team. Now, you might think, well, yeah, without them in the team, then he's going to get all the glory, he's going to get all the opportunities. But Salah and Mane's clever running, the opportunities they create, the opportunities that they create when Jota's assisting them as well, there's such a fluid front three that even though he will now be the star of that Liverpool attack, I think it causes them a massive detriment with respect to their attacking output when Salah and Mane aren't in the team. So despite the fact that he does have the best underlying statistics on here, I do think you need to take them with a slight pinch of salt because I don't expect them to continue at that rate when Salah and Mane aren't in the team. And of course, they aren't in the team for game week 23. So Jota has the best, but I'm not sure with the context that they necessarily are the best. I'd say second best, if you're looking at them as and like an entirety, all of the underlying statistics together, I'd say Foden probably comes out second best. You can see by the colour scheme that he's around second, third best on the list for almost every underlying statistic. Assists and goals per 90, really, really good output. We're looking at almost like a goal or assist every 3 goals and assists every 4 games, about 0.75 you got there. You got touches in the box, 5.89, which is the third best on this list. Highly impressive. That's because he can play false 9, but even when he's in on that left or the right, he does like to cut in and he gets very involved in the action. His non-penalty expected goals, 0.39, is highly impressive as well. Combine that with the fact that his expected assists are quite high. That puts him as the second best on this list for non-penalty expected goals and expected assists at 0.68, and his expected FPL points at 6.3. So I would say that Foden is probably the second best if you're looking at underlying statistics. And then Ronaldo is just a short drop down from that if you're looking at the overall underlying statistics. So if you're going for attackers, I would say Jota, Foden, and then probably Ronaldo based on these underlying statistics. With respect to players such as Rafinha, Watkins, King, KDB, they each have their thing that you could suggest is a reason to captain them. You've got justification for all of them. But Rafinha and Watkins in particular, I've only put here if they have double game weeks. I know they've got good fixtures, which we'll discuss in a second, but their underlying statistics are really poor. You can see their non-penalty expected goals both are 0.4. So their expected goals and expected assists 0.4. An expected goal involvement of 0.4 really isn't very impressive. You're talking about 2.5 games that they'd need to finally get up to an expected goal involvement, which isn't very good for an attacking player. Definitely not good for a captaincy option. Now, I do expect Rafinha's to start to improve with Leeds starting to get some players back from injury. Specifically, if Bamford is back, that will be a massive improvement. But that might pull him off of penalties. So there might be a bit of an issue there as well. So I think that Rafinha and Watkins, for me, are only considerations if they get a double game week. If they don't, I personally would be happy owning them. I wouldn't be looking at captaincy based on this. KDB's an interesting one, because his expected goal involvement's decent, but that is majoritarily made up from expected assists. 0.39 expected assist is the joint best on this list. His expected goals is only 0.18. So he's not going to get massive amount of opportunities to score goals. If he does, it will likely be from outside the box. But his expected assists are incredibly high. And if he gets a couple of assists, the odd goal as well, he can be in for a massive haul, as we've seen on various occasions this season. King is an interesting one because King's underlying statistics are really good and he might be on penalties, but I'm just not sure how much I trust Watford, which we'll discuss in the next section. So I don't mind King or Dennis as a real outside punt, but when you look at some of the other options here, such as Jota and Foden, KDB even to some extent, I'm just not sure that King would be the top of my price. As we saw this week with the blank against Burnley, not against Burnley, against Norwich, I don't think that they're against Newcastle, I should say. I don't think that they're necessarily the best options from an attacking perspective. So for me, as I said, Jota, Foden, Ronaldo, then maybe KDB just under Ronaldo. But I do think the Jota and Foden are probably the main two for me. I do want to put Trent and Cancelo into the conversation, even from an attacking perspective. We'll discuss defensive data in a second and we'll discuss team data as well. But Cancelo and Trent are holding their own with respect to attacking data. So very, very impressive, both of them for assist per 90. They actually, so for actual assist output, they top the list. So Trent at 0.53 assists per 90 and Cancelo at 0.38. They are the top two on this list and they are fullbacks, which is incredibly impressive. Both getting around 2.5 touches in the box per 90, highly impressive as well. Expected assists, though, is where Trent just blows everyone out the water from a defensive perspective, but also he's one of the best in the league for this statistic. 0.39 expected assists per 90 for Trent. That puts him equal with KDB. And that puts his non-penalty expected goals and expected assists at 0.47 per 90. To put that into perspective, that puts his expected goal involvement higher than Rafinha and Watkins. And it's approaching that of King and KDB. So what you're getting with Trent, if you remove clean sheets, are pretty good underlying statistics. When you chuck into account clean sheets, what you get is what you can see in that final box of this chart, which is 7.21 expected FPL points per 90 for Trent. So across the first 22 game weeks, out of everyone on this list, Trent has the highest expected FPL points per 90 because you take into account attacking data and also expected clean sheets as well. Therefore, I think Trent really does need to be in the conversation every single week, and specifically in a week where it's quite a tricky one to choose. I've actually put Trent, if you're looking at the underlying statistics here, third on the list, because when you take into account clean sheets, which I am here, I do think that that makes him an incredible option. And that does mean that I've put Cancelo fifth ahead of the likes of Watkins, KDB, King, etc. I just think he's a great option because he's got decent underlying statistics from an attacking perspective. If you take into account how good City's defence is, it just puts him in a really good position, as you can see by his 6.5 expected FPL points per 90. So if you're still with me and you don't like underlying statistics, thank you for staying. The general, I guess, summary of it all is that Jota and Foden have got incredibly impressive statistics. KDB and Ronaldo aren't bad. Rafinha and Watkins, for me, just aren't cutting it with respect to their underlying statistics. Kings are good, but he's a bit of a tricky one where I'm not sure I necessarily trust Watford or King to maintain that sort of attacking output and to actually meet his underlying statistics. And then if you do want to risk it with a defender, and it is a risk because you do really need that clean sheet for it to be a massive haul, Cancelo and Trent should be in our decision-making every single week. So that's the individual underlying statistics. Let's take a look at the team data now. So what we're looking at here is we're looking at the captaincy team data. So what we've got on the left with the columns that have the grey heading, the grey box heading, I should say. What we've got there is we've got the attacking data from the team they play for. So the reason we've got Liverpool, United, City, Leeds, Watford and Villa is those are the teams of the options that I just discussed in the previous section. And in those final four columns, what you've got is you've got the defensive data of the team they're playing. And just so that you know which fixture they've got, you've got the badge next to it. So obviously Liverpool have Palace, United have West Ham, Man City have Southampton, etc. And just surrounding the badge of the team they're playing, if they're surrounded in green, it means it's a home fixture. So Manchester United have West Ham at home. And if it's surrounded in red, it means it's an away fixture. So Liverpool have Palace away. So hopefully those statistics are clear. What you can also see in those squiggly boxes, those little lines just above me, that is the attacking data of Palace and Southampton. So we'll just quickly start with that. What I wanted to show is if you want to captain Trent or Cancelo, how good are Palace and Southampton from an attacking perspective across the season? So what you can see is they're actually pretty decent, but you would say around mid-table. So Palace are currently 8th for expected goals per 90 at 1.26 in the Premier League, and Southampton are 9th at 1.23. So they are very, very similar there. Southampton and Palace, both decent attacks, but you wouldn't say they're mind-blowing. When you take into account the fact that City and Liverpool have the best defences in the league, and the fact that Trent and Cancelo have such great attacking output, you would say that that's not necessarily a terrible thing, but you would hope for a slightly weaker defence if you are targeting captain and defender. So that wouldn't put me off, but it is something to bear in mind that Palace and Southampton aren't necessarily teams that struggle to score goals. If we look at the attacking data from the teams that they play for, from that perspective, you can see that Liverpool are by far and away the best attack. But as I said, massive context needed. Salah and Mane aren't there. And that does massively affect their output. So yes, Liverpool still have the best attack and they have had the best attack all season, but it probably puts me off Jota, I'll be completely honest. I highlighted as potentially captaining Jota when Salah and Mane are away, but the more I think about it, it's just difficult to assess what sort of team they are in the absence of those two. And for me, when I can see some more reliable teams where their teams haven't changed that much and I know what to expect from them, such as a Manchester City, or potentially even from a defensive perspective, it might make me slightly more convinced captaining another player. So I'm not saying that they're just going to suddenly become a terrible attack, but you would expect them to drop slightly off until Salah and Mane return. The second best attack in the league, in almost every single underlying statistic, is Manchester City. You can see second for goals per 90, second for non-penalty expected goals per 90, second for shots in the box, and the third for big chances per 90, which is highly impressive. They are an incredible team. They're going to create lots of chances, they're going to score lots of goals. The difficult thing for Manchester City is nailing which player is going to start and which player in that game is going to haul, because often the goals are quite spread. But from a team perspective, if you're not going to target Liverpool, City are a pretty good team to target. And then the third best team of all of the options here is Manchester United, believe it or not. And across the season, yes, they're no longer sort of a top four side with respect to underlying statistics, but they're still sort of like a Europa League side, a Europa Conference League. 7th for goals per 90, 5th for non-penalty expected goals per 90, 6th for shots in the box, and 6th for big chances per 90. So Manchester United is still a team across the season that are attacking fairly well. Even over recent game weeks, even though the output hasn't been fantastic, the underlying data has not been terrible for them. And when you consider that Ronaldo's underlying data was pretty good from an individual perspective, couple that with the fact that their data is all right as a team perspective, you would say that it's not necessarily an issue captaining a Manchester United player. I'm not sure I'd necessarily advise it every week, but there are certainly weeks you could do that. If we look at then Leeds, Watford and Villa, this was slightly interesting for me in that I would have said that Villa and Watford have significantly better attacks than Leeds. I would have said that Leeds have been really struggling. When you look at the underlying data, I would actually say that Leeds are one of the better teams here. So the only thing that Watford beat Leeds on quite comfortably, although it's not quite comfortably really, is non-penalty expected goals. I've just had a look, it's only 1.05 versus 1.02. So Leeds and Watford, despite the fact that we've got in our head that King and Dennis are scoring loads of goals, and yes they are, their output hasn't been that dissimilar to Leeds. So for me, I would be tempted potentially, because we'll look at the fixture in a second, I'd be tempted by Rafinha, maybe, because he gets the extra point for the goal, he gets the extra point for the clean sheet as well. And the underlying statistic from a team perspective isn't that different between Leeds and Watford. Now, what I was incredibly surprised at is that Villa have probably the poorest attack out of the 6 teams listed here. Villa are 9th for goals per 90, so they've scored a fair amount of goals. But for non-penalty expected goals per 90 across the season, Villa are actually 18th. They've got less than an expected non-penalty expected goal per 90 at 0.87. So yes, it's improved slightly under Gerrard, but from an attacking perspective, we've not really seen that much from Villa. And across the season, they've really struggled. They tend to win games by a very few goals, 1-0, 2-1, etc. So that would massively put me off of Watkins. I wouldn't captain Watkins anyway. If they do get a double and you want to go for Watkins or Coutinho, I don't mind it. But in a single game week, I definitely wouldn't be targeting Villa based on, number 1, Watkins' underlying stats, and number 2, the attacking data as a team as well. If we take a look at the fixture, it's a very clear trend. The 3 best teams on this list are Liverpool, United, City, but they have the 3 worst fixtures. And Leeds, Watford, Villa have the best fixtures. So it's a tricky one. Do you choose the best players from the best teams, or do you choose slightly weaker players from slightly weaker teams with good fixtures? It is the whole debate of fixtures versus form, or fixtures versus underlying statistics. Because the fixtures, as you would expect, suggest that Newcastle is the fixture to target. If you're going to attack a fixture, you attack Newcastle. They are bottom of the league for goals conceded per 90, bottom of the league for expected goals conceded per 90, bottom of the league for expected clean sheets, and 16th for shots in the box conceded per 90. If you're not targeting that Newcastle fixture, and it is very targetable, the other fixture, as you would expect to target, is probably Norwich. Now, they are in sort of the bottom 4 or 5 for almost every underlying statistic. Outside of that, Everton probably do have the 3rd weakest defence here. But like I said, there's not enough convincing me from Watkins or from Villa to captain him unless there is a double game week. Southampton have very sort of mid-table data. Now, I don't think that's necessarily an issue when you're talking about Manchester City and the likes of Foden and KDB. Great underlying statistics. City are so potent in attack. When they're playing mid-table sides, which Southampton are 11th, 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 12th for the 4 underlying statistics here, you would say that that's a pretty good fixture to target. West Ham are again roughly mid-table, but slightly pushing towards the top half of the table. So they are 8th, 9th, 14th and 10th for these underlying statistics. So West Ham a slightly more targetable fixture than Palace, but still not a great fixture. And then Palace, like I've said before, they have fantastic underlying data. And even though recently they've dropped off slightly, we are still talking about a top half of the table team with respect to their defensive data. And therefore, along with the fact that we don't know how Liverpool perform with Salah and Mane out, over a long period anyway, I'm not sure that I would want to be targeting Jota as captaincy, just because, like I said, without Salah and Mane, and also Palace have a fantastic defensive record. If we combine all of that together, I would argue that this is probably pointing towards one of 2 things. You target the fixture massively, and you go for a captaincy punt on Rafinha against Newcastle, because the data's not bad for Leeds. Rafinha's is okay. We're expecting them to continue to improve, and that Newcastle fixture is very targetable. Or you just back the good teams. And in doing so, I think you've probably got 3 main options, and that is Foden/KDB from an attacking perspective for City, and then one of Cancelo and Trent. At this point in time, I probably wouldn't captain Rafinha because I just don't like his underlying data enough, and I don't like Leeds as an attacking unit yet quite enough. If we start to see what they got to last season, then maybe. But for now, I would personally rule out Rafinha, which would leave me with, because I don't own KDB, it would leave me with Foden, Cancelo and Trent as my top 3 captaincy options. If I could confirm Foden was starting, I'd have my armband on Foden. I just think that City's attacking data is very good. I think that Southampton's defensive data is average, sort of mid-table, and Foden's underlying stats are fantastic. So I think Foden at the moment will probably be my captaincy, but I might revert back to one of Cancelo and Trent because you'd expect them to start. They're probably more nailed on than Foden. Their underlying data is great, and the defensive data for Liverpool and City is great as well. So top 3 options, Foden, if you don't own Foden, maybe KDB, and then Cancelo and Trent for me. Let me know down below, after all of that, who is your number 1 captaincy option? Is it someone I haven't even mentioned here? Are you going for the likes of King and Dennis? Are you targeting the fixture potentially with Rafinha? I'm always interested to hear your thoughts down below. If we have a double game week, I'll almost definitely captain the player with a double game week. And you might have skipped this section anyway. If we don't and we have a single game week, I do think you've got to go for someone from City and Liverpool, in my personal opinion. Now, this wasn't necessarily a question that I was asked over on Twitter, but it was something that I wanted to draw your attention to, is that just keep in mind which teams have lots of fixtures to be rearranged. And the teams that I've listed here are teams with 3 or more fixtures to be rearranged. And then at the bottom, I've just got the teams listed with 2 games left to be played. The reason for this is not that I would necessarily start bringing in players with 5 fixtures just for the sake of it, but there's two things. If you're really stuck on who to bring in and you've got a couple of options, maybe consider, if it's a 50-50 decision, maybe consider the one with either the better fixtures to be rearranged or the more fixtures to be rearranged. And secondly, probably don't sell players with lots of fixtures to be rearranged, because you're probably going to want them back for an upcoming double game week at some point. So these are just things to bear in mind. So I'll just quickly list them off. If you want to take a screenshot, you can. I'll post for you now. Perfect. So 5 fixtures to be rearranged for Burnley. We've known this for a while. It's sort of the standing joke over on Twitter and the FPL community. Burnley have got a lot of games to be rearranged. They're pretty decent games, some of them, and 4 of the 5 games are at home. So you've got Spurs at home, Villa away, Everton at home, Watford at home, Leicester at home. So 5 fixtures to be rearranged. Like I said, that I wouldn't necessarily run out and buy Pope and me and all of those, but I was going to say all of those players. There's not got that many players to choose from. They've probably got Cornet as the main one, Maxwell Cornet from... Obviously, he's away at AFCON at the moment with the Ivory Coast, so that is something to bear in mind. But when they come back, when the doubles start to get rearranged, I would look into it. If you already own the likes of Lowton, definitely don't sell him, of course. So just keep an eye on Burnley. They're going to have a lot of double game weeks coming up, potentially a triple game week, as we saw last season with Manchester United. Arsenal have 4 fixtures to be rearranged, but they're not very good fixtures. So I'm not rushing out to buy Arsenal players, especially with the fact that they've got 2 scheduled blanks coming up as well. Obviously, I think in one of them, they could get one of these fixtures rearranged into, but 2 blanks, 4 pretty tricky fixtures to be rearranged. I'm not necessarily sure I'm rushing out. So Spurs away, Chelsea away, Liverpool at home, Wolves at home. All 4 of those are pretty tricky fixtures. So I'm not, like I said, rushing out to buy Arsenal players. Leicester have got 4 pretty good fixtures to be rearranged. Norwich at home is great. Everton away is pretty great unless they get a real good manager bounce. Burnley away is a fantastic fixture, especially if Burnley have lots of fixtures coming thick and fast, and Chelsea away. So I have got my eye on bringing in Maddison at some point. So if you brought in Maddison last week and then the double got cancelled, don't panic. You've got some great fixtures coming up. Don't sell your Leicester assets, or I wouldn't personally anyway. Then you've got Spurs, Watford and Everton with 3 each. So these, again, are teams to just keep in mind. If you own Spurs, Watford or Everton players, I probably wouldn't be selling them. I wouldn't be selling the likes of Calvert-Lewin. I am tempted to sell Damari Gray until the doubles come up, although the fixtures are so great. It's just that I don't really like having a double up from Everton when their attack has been so poor. I probably will hold on to Damari Gray and Calvert-Lewin and hope that, like I said, they get some sort of new manager bounce or fixtures breed form. And with the fantastic fixtures that they've got coming up, plus the fact that they've got Burnley, Newcastle and Leicester to be rearranged, on top of the fixtures they already have, I think I'm fairly happy holding them for the time being. So I think I would hold on to Everton assets if you can. And then the teams with 2 games to be rearranged are Brighton, Wolves, Liverpool, Chelsea, Leeds, Villa and Newcastle. So still quite a few teams with 2 games left to play as well. I would say that out of those, Aston Villa is the one that really interests me. A similar reason to Everton. They've got great fixtures coming up without the doubles, plus the fact that they've got Burnley and Leeds to rearrange soon as well. I would say that from those teams, I would be targeting Aston Villa with respect to fixtures and games to be rescheduled as well. So this was just a little quick section to just say, keep an eye on which teams have got which games to play. Have a look at the schedule. If you can't work out when they're going to go in, what weeks they're going to go into, because I find it tricky sometimes as well, just follow Ben Crellin over on Twitter. He's an absolute genius. Ben, Crellin on Twitter. Absolutely brilliant for guessing when the games will be rescheduled. He's got a very, very good track record, and he'll admit when he's not sure and when he's guessing. He'll give percentages of how likely it is, and he'll give us an idea before the Premier League announce it as to when these fixtures are likely to be rescheduled. But definitely worth keeping an eye on. Let me know any of these teams you're looking at targeting, any players from these teams you're looking at targeting. Like I said, I think Maddison from Leicester will be fantastic, so if you own him, keep him. I like Watford's fixture to be rearranged, Everton as well, and potentially Aston Villa, but let me know down below what you think. So this is a fantastic question, and it's not necessarily a question that has a correct answer. And you know, if you followed my channel for a while, I try not to give you absolutes. And I think if anyone gives you absolutes in anything, they're probably not someone worth listening to their advice, because especially with FPL and especially with football, we are trying to predict how 11 strangers that we don't know will play against 11 other strangers in a football match across 90 minutes. It's impossible to predict. So anyone that tries to tell you something with absolutes, this is definitely the player to go for. Definitely captain this. It's just not the way to go, in my personal opinion. So I'm going to give you my opinion on this, but it's a very tricky question to answer. So the question is, should we target double city defense or should we target double attack? Now, I think for most people, and this won't be the case for everyone, but for most people, you'll own Cancelo and then one of Foden, KDB, Bernardo Silva, Gundogan. You'll own a City attacker of sorts. So the question is, we probably want to triple up on City for the next coming fixtures, and I do think we should be tripled up on City with the fixtures they've got coming up. Do you add one of Laporte, Diaz, Walker, Zinchenko, etc., or do you add another attacker, a Foden, a KDB, a Bernardo Silva, a Grealish, alongside whoever you have already? I want to start by saying Man City have the best attack in the league, the best defense in the league, I should say, and the second best attack in the league. So you can see there on the information, they're first in the league for expected goals conceded per 90, and they're second in the league for expected goals per 90. So you are either bringing in some of the best players from the players from the best defense, or the players from the second best attack. So there is no issue with doing either or. From a fixtures perspective, and this is from the Fantasy Football Scout ticker, they are fourth best for fixtures from an attacking perspective up to game week 29. The reason I've gone to game week 29 is there's a blank in game week 30, and I think a lot of us will free hit in 30, and then maybe wildcard in 31, 32. So I've gone up to game week 29. They have the fourth best fixtures from an attacking perspective, and the second best fixtures from a defensive perspective. So really fantastic defense, really fantastic defensive fixtures, very, very good attack, and very, very good attacking fixtures. So just from that information, you would slightly lean towards the defense. What I've also got here is I've got the top 3 defensive options from City, and arguably the top 3 attacking options from Manchester City. And what I've done is I've looked at a few things. The first, you can see where it says value season. That's looking at their value with respect to the amount of points they've got divided by their total price. So Diaz's total points divided by 6.3 gives us his value of 15.2. What this tells us is not only how many points they're getting, which you can see also with the points per match column, but how are they worth their price tag? And the reason I do that is because City defenders are obviously cheaper than the City attackers. So what I want to know is it worth paying the extra for a City attacker, or do you just go for double City defense? So as well as that, you've got points per match, as I said, and then you've got expected FPL points per 90. So if we look at value across the season, the top 3, as you would probably expect, are the 3 defenders. So we've got Cancelo at 18.9, which is the best in the league at the moment. So Cancelo has the best value in the league this season. So even at 7 million, Cancelo is 100% worth it. If you do not own Cancelo, get him in your team now. Desperately get him in your team now. He's a captaincy option over the next 5 or 6 weeks, and they've just got fantastic fixtures anyway. He will batter your rank, I guarantee it, if you don't read him in. So I said I don't speak in absolutes, but my absolute would be to bring in Cancelo. I just think he's a fantastic option. Obviously, play your own game, but that's just my opinion on it. Outside of that, Diaz and Laporte have both been fantastic value this season. 6.2 for Laporte, 15.2 for Diaz. I would say that the fact that Diaz just got his rest probably means Diaz starts the next 3 or 4. And I do expect, therefore, Laporte to miss one of the next 3 or 4. But if you're bringing this defender in for the next 7, 8, 9, 10 game weeks, I would expect them to play exactly the same amount of games. And therefore, when you take into account the fact that Laporte is £0.7 million cheaper and he has better underlying goal threat, I personally prefer Laporte. So they're both great value. They're both decently priced, considering how good the City defence is. But if I were to double up with Cancelo, it would be with Laporte over Diaz. And the value is slightly better, which does slightly back up my point, likely because his price is slightly cheaper. With respect to the attackers, you can see KDB has been terrible value this season. He hasn't played as many minutes as usual, which obviously brings down his value, and the fact that he's 12.1 million. But due to the fact he hasn't played that many minutes, I wouldn't stress that much there. Foden at 9.5 isn't great, but it's fairly decent. And the fact that he is quite cheap at 8 million does make me think that he might be one of the best attackers to own. And then Sterling at 7.5, slightly better value than KDB because he's slightly cheaper, again, as you would expect. So this would suggest that value-wise, if you're trying to get the best for your money from an attacking perspective, from a Manchester City perspective, you would go for 2 defenders and Phil Foden. If we look at points per match, however, the attackers do come out on top. So KDB and Foden have the highest points per match on this list here. Then it goes to Cancelo, then it goes to Sterling. So if we're looking at a points per match perspective, and we're not taking into account price, KDB, Foden, and Cancelo would be the triple up to go. If we look at expected FPL points per 90, Cancelo comes out on top, and then we've got Foden and Sterling. So if you're looking at underlying expected data, a triple up of Cancelo, Foden, and Sterling would be the 3 to go. So it really does depend on what you're looking at. In my personal opinion, if I were to build the perfect team going forward for the rest of the season, it would be Cancelo, Laporte, and Foden as my top 3 Manchester City players. So I guess my answer to this is due to the fact that their defensive data is slightly better, the defensive fixtures are slightly better, and due to the fact that defenders are so much cheaper but have a similar-ish output, I think a double up of Cancelo and Laporte, maybe Diaz if you want to do so, maybe Cancelo and Diaz, alongside your attacker of choice. My personal attacker of choice, maybe biased because I already own him, would be Foden. He plays quite a few minutes. He's got better attacking output, as we saw in the captaincy section, than KDB, and he's so much cheaper. £4 million you're saving. £4.1 million. So for me, finalised answer would be Laporte, Cancelo and Foden as my Manchester City triple up. Let me know down below which three you would be going for if you're going for a triple up, or are you just happy staying on a double up? Maybe you've got one of KDB and Foden, you've got Cancelo, and you're going to leave that third spot open and maybe assess it. I just think their fixtures are so good that I'm going to want to triple up, and that would be the way I would go in my personal opinion. So I actually got this question quite a few times, which was strange. I don't know if maybe another content creator had been discussing it. But the question was, what is the best formation moving forward? Is it a 3-5-2? Should we pump money into the attack? Should we go cheap in attack so we can get KDB and Salah? Should we have a premium defense again because the defenders are performing so well? So there are lots of questions around this, and I have a pretty strong opinion on this. But as I said, it is an opinion. It is not an absolute. Do form your own opinion on this. My opinion is that the best formation at the moment is a 5-5-3. Now, I know you can't play a 5-5-3, but what I mean by that is that my opinion is you have 5 playing defenders, you have 5 playing midfielders, and you have 3 playing attackers, and you don't decide your formation. You make sure that some of the players rotate well, yes, and you make sure that each week you can field 11 strong players, but you make sure that you've got enough money on your bench, not too much, but enough money and enough depth that you can play any formation. That's personally my opinion. I would not dead end into a formation, because the thing with FPL is it's constantly changing. The cycle of FPL, the formations that are in. Obviously, we had big at the back at the start of the season. Then we had a lot of money pumped into the attack. Then all of the attackers suddenly were terrible. Then we wanted money into the midfield. Now we're going back to a midfield. The strikers still aren't performing, but we're thinking about a premium attack. Maybe Robertson, Trent, Diaz, Cancelo, Laporte. We've got so many different options that I just think that the landscape changes too quickly for me in FPL to dead end my team into a specific formation. So for me, the best formation is 5-5-3. I think that the other reason that I would personally want 8 attacking players in particular, so if you do want to scrounge out, maybe in the defense, the reason I would want 8 playing attackers is because I think the double game weeks will favour attacking picks. When you look at the teams that still have players to play, I can imagine the likes of Cornet, Maddison, Damari Gray, Coutinho, Rafinha, Ollie Watkins, whoever it may be. All of those attackers at some point in the near future are going to be really, really desirable. The defence, yes, you might want to bring in the likes of, I don't know, Luke Ayling, or you might want to bring in Lowton or Tarkovsky or whoever it may be, but the fact that the teams with lots of fixtures left to play don't have the best defense in the world, but have pretty decent attacks, or at least have attackers that you would want to target. I think that when we attack these double game weeks, we're going to be going for attackers. The issue you have, if you say, say for example, I'm going to play a 4-3-3. I'm going to have 2 dead midfielders and I'm going to have 1 dead defender, and that's the thing I'm targeting. What happens is, or even let's say a 3-4-3, because I think that's more realistic. If you have 4 midfielders and you have Foden, KDB, Salah and Jota, you go loads of money in midfield. And then you have a double game week where Burnley have a double game week, Everton have a double game week, and Villa have a double game week. You're going to want Coutinho, Gray and Cornet. If you've got an incredible, expensive 4-man midfield and then a dead 4th spot, someone like a Gilmore or a Brownhill, wherever it may be, you're going to find it very difficult to get those punts in, because your budget and your flexibility and your structure doesn't allow you to go for a 5th punt in midfield. And your 4 players that you've got are season keepers. So what I would personally do is I would build a strong base of 3 or 4 strong midfielders. I would build a strong base of 2 strikers that I really, really like. And then I would leave 1 spot in midfield and I would leave 1 spot in attack that I really wouldn't mind constantly switching. So you might go for a Jota, a Foden, a KDB, and then maybe like a Bowen. And that 5th spot, you might rotate. It might be a Coutinho, it might be a Rafinha, it might be a Cornet, it might be a Gallagher. You rotate that spot whenever you want. Equally, you can do that in attack. Maybe you go for an Ollie Watkins for now, and then you switch out to an Antonio, or you switch out to whoever it may be with a double game week. Then you go to Dennis and King when they've got a fantastic double game week. So for me, if you dead end into a formation, you're limiting your flexibility in future weeks when you want to attack double game weeks. So that is another reason for me that I would want at least 8 playing attackers. And something that you can do in and around that as well, which you can see with point 3 here, is you can choose some long-term defensive options, which means that you don't need to desperately change your defense if you don't want to. So yes, you can change your defense if you really do want to attack a double game week. Maybe there's a double game week with a really good defense, someone like Wolves. They have a double game week that's a fantastic double game week. They've got fantastic defensive data, and you make a transfer there. But if you make sure that your defense is filled with players which you're happy keeping longer term, you can focus those transfers on attacking the double game week. So a little bit of advice in and around everything there, but I guess I don't think there is an optimal formation, and I don't think you should shoehorn yourself into saying there is an optimal formation. So for me, have 5-5-3 as a possibility. And then each week you can decide 4-4-2, 3-5-2, 3-4-3, whatever it may be. That's my opinion on it. In this final bit, we're going to look at a wildcard draft where I'll put some of this into action. Right, you're going to laugh at me because I said double City defence and I've got De Bruyne, Foden and Cancelo. So I'm going to start with that. The first thing to note with this wildcard draft is, I guess, firstly, before even all that, I've given this around half an hour to an hour of research, thought, planning, rotations. I've had a proper look at it so that I've given you a very good wildcard draft. But if you are wildcarding, you would have spent a lot longer than me. So you might have found some better rotational pairs, etc. I'm not wildcarding this week, so I haven't given it the amount of effort I normally would if I was wildcarding myself. So by all means, suggest down below if there's someone I've missed out, or there's someone you might be more interested in. So do bear that in mind. So you can see I've got Cancelo, De Bruyne, Foden. The reason for that is if I was on a wild card, I think I would have to attack the next few fixtures with De Bruyne in my team. He's looking absolutely fantastic. The fixtures are really, really good. And with a wild card, that's not going to cost me any money to go to De Bruyne now. And he acts as a really, really nice Salah placeholder. On my wild card, I would not spread the funds. I would make sure that I've got, and this has enough money in the bank to go straight from De Bruyne to Salah. So that's the reason that De Bruyne is in there over a Laporte, because he's a nice Salah placeholder. I'd attack the next few weeks. I think De Bruyne is a good captaincy option at points over the next few weeks. If you don't want to go for Foden or you don't want to go for Cancelo or Trent, I think he's a good option. And then when the time comes, you can make that switch from De Bruyne, probably around game week 26, maybe game week 25, from De Bruyne to Salah. At that point, if you have another free transfer, if you want to, you can then bring in Laporte for either Luca Dean or potentially Cucurella. So that's why I've got two City attackers here. I do still think that the optimal use of your price, and if you're using free transfers and you're not on a wild card, would be Cancelo, Laporte and Foden. So outside of that triple City up, if we start with the attack, I've got Calvert-Lewin, Watkins and King. The reason for those three is I think they offer fantastic value. Calvert-Lewin might be on penalties, although if El Ghazi's on the pitch, he might take them. Richarlison might potentially as well, but Calvert-Lewin might be on penalties. Great fixtures coming up. Also, 3 nice fixtures to be rearranged as well. Watkins, exactly the same. Obviously not on penalties, but he does have fixtures to be rearranged. And I think Villa are starting to improve, and the fixtures anyway are pretty nice. So Watkins would be in my team as well. And then I've got King as the third option there. Now, I think you can have King or Dennis. I think there are pros and cons to each. I've got King because he's on penalties. The underlying data is slightly better. The reason I've got a Watford striker is a couple of reasons. Number one, they're fantastic value. And number two, I just think they've got okay fixtures, but they've got fixtures to be rearranged. So I think at that value, to get a penalty taker with decent fixtures, good fixtures to be rearranged in a team that attack fairly well for a lower table side, I just think that King offers great value. You could potentially go for Chris Wood in there as well. Chris Wood's not a bad option if you want to go for a Newcastle attacker. St. Maximan, I know, has been brought in by quite a few managers this week. But for me, I think Calvert-Lewin, Watkins, King offer you some good price points there and also quite a few fixtures to be rearranged as well. The midfield 5 for me was actually fairly easy, apart from the fact that I also wanted Coutinho. But when it comes down to it, and I'm deciding, do I put Coutinho in? I can't work out where I would put him instead. The only person that I might want to go is Coutinho in for De Bruyne because he offers better value. But I'm going to want Salah back in that position anyway, so I might as well go for De Bruyne for now as a good placeholder. I think that when you're deciding whether to bring in a player that hasn't played many games, specifically hasn't played many games in the league, I think you go for the safer options in Bowen, Rafinha. That would be the smartest thing, Bowen, Rafinha, Jota. If Coutinho looks incredible, you then make that decision out of Jota, Bowen, Rafinha, which ones you want to take out. Bowen has been in insane form, and you could not, I don't think you could realistically drop him from your wild card. The one thing I would say is West Ham don't have fixtures to be rearranged. So if you put in the likes of Coutinho and Rafinha and they play the majority of minutes, they're going to get 2, 3, 4 more games than West Ham, which is definitely worth keeping in mind as well. The other thing I would say is that the reason I like having Bowen and Rafinha as my 2 cheaper players is that the likes of Cornet, as I said, when Burnley do get their doubles, I'll probably bring in Cornet for one of Bowen or Rafinha in there as well. So I really like that midfield 5. I think that's probably the best part of the wild card, and I would almost definitely be going along those lines. Coutinho might make his way in, but I just don't see who for. Then the back line, Trent and Cancelo pick themselves. I don't think you can wild card without either of those. I've got Cucurella because he's a bonus points monster, absolute monster. He got a bonus point when they conceded. He almost got a second bonus point against Chelsea when they conceded as well. He's just absolutely fantastic, and Brighton's defensive numbers are in the top 4, and they've been in the top 4 all season as well. I've then got Luca Dean because of Aston Villa's fantastic fixtures, the fixture to be rearranged, and also he's really great from an attacking perspective, might be on some set pieces as well. And then my 5th defender, just because he's pretty cheap and they have 5 fixtures to be rearranged, is Lowton. Now, I wouldn't play Lowton in probably any week apart from double and triple game weeks if they get them. I would probably play a 3-5-2 most weeks or a 3-4-3, but I have that option there. And that's what I like about this. I could play any formation and my team would look strong. So that's what I like. In goal, I've got Foster as my second keeper. You might want to spend a little bit more money. I think I have like 1.6 million in the bank in this draft. So I've got some money to spend. So you might want to upgrade Foster to a better playing goalkeeper. And then my main goalkeeper would be Jose Sarr. Wolves have fixtures be rearranged. They've got decent fixtures across the remainder of the season. The next few aren't that great, but they've just got such great defensive data. Jose Sarr has got incredible post-shot expected goals saved. So he saves a lot of really high XG shots. And I just think that he's probably the best keeper at that price. I don't mind Ramsdale, though they've got blanks coming up, so you do need another goalkeeper. I don't mind De Gea, don't mind Sanchez. But for me, I think I'd be targeting Jose Sarr as the keeper. So if you are wildcarding this week, hopefully that helped. If you're wildcarding in the next couple of weeks, hopefully that gives you an idea of the general structure that I'd be targeting. As per my chip strategy videos my chip strategy video a few weeks ago, I still plan on wildcarding post blank game week 30. So due to the FA Cup, there's likely to be quite a large blank game week 30. If I can maneuver that without free hitting, I might dead end into that and then free hit in 31. If I maneuver that with a free hit, I'd probably free hit in 30 and then maybe wildcard in 32, 33 before what will likely be double game week 33, double game week 34, double game week 35, double game week 36, double game week 37. We might potentially have 5 double game weeks in a row in that back end of the season. So I'm going to save my wildcard at the time of recording this. This is my personal opinion. I might save my wildcard for the back end of the season. Let me know down below. What do you think of my wildcard draft? Is there anyone I've desperately missed out? Always interested to hear your thoughts. I'm sure you guys will give me someone that I didn't consider. So just before we end today's video, I just want to give a massive shout out to the ever-growing Raptor Hall of Fame, the legends that support the channel by giving a small monthly fee to my channel. Obviously, it goes to me. YouTube take a small cut, I think 30% YouTube take of that. And then you're supporting the channel, you're supporting me. But most importantly, in return, you get some perks for it. So it's not just give me money for creating content. It's you can support the channel, and in return, I will give you some perks as well. So if you'd like to support the channel, you've been thinking, you've been enjoying the content, and you want to help in some way, you can do this. There's no obligation. I'm not encouraging you to. I'm just letting you know that it is there as an option. And I just wanted to say thank you to those guys that are here. So if you're wondering what the Raptor Hall of Fame is, what a membership is. If you're a Raptor 2 supporter, so you can see the list directly above me, these guys pay 99p a month and you get a badge next to your name in comments and in live stream, and you also get access to some custom emojis. We've got a thinking Velociraptor emoji that was created by Johnny, one of our Raptor 1 members. We've got a green arrow, a red arrow, a captaincy, pep roulette, whatever it may be. We create these different emojis. That's what you get as a Raptor 2 supporter, and obviously the pleasure of having a shout out in the videos. If you want to be a Raptor 1 supporter, that is more expensive per month. As part of that, you get loads of other perks though. You get entered into our group chat on Twitter, where we're constantly helping each other and talking about our teams, talking about FPL, talking about football. There's also a Raptor 1 mini league as well, where you can compete against some of the best managers out there at the moment. I think I'm 10th or 11th in that league now, and I'm ranked like 45k. There are some incredible ranks in that league as well. So if you want a competitive league with other people that watch my content, you can do that as well. And you also obviously get member shout outs. You get priority reply in live stream, etc. You can potentially become a moderator in the live streams as well. So there's lots and lots of perks being a Raptor 1 supporter. You can DM me on Twitter privately as well if you want to chat about stuff. So I just wanted to let you know that this exists, but most importantly, thank those of you that have already become members. I think Andre was the first, and that was just over 4 months ago now. So we've been quite a long time we've been having members on this channel, and I just absolutely love it. And specifically the Raptor 1 supporters that I talk to on a regular basis, you know how much I appreciate you, but also the Raptor 2 supporters that I don't always chat to, thank you so much. If you do decide to join, that's absolutely amazing. Drop me a DM on Twitter and I'll be happy to follow you as well. Thanks, guys. So guys, there you have it. That is my Game Week 23 preview video done and dusted. Tomorrow, there will be my team selection video. I'll go through my potential transfer plans. I'll also go through who I'm currently captaining at that time tomorrow in my team selection video. So keep an eye out for that. I'll also go through my watch list, and I'll go through a little bit of live tinkering for future game weeks and what my current plan is as well. On Friday, I am planning to live stream. I won't live stream right up until the deadline, but it will be in the afternoon UK time. Let's say around 5 p.m. I'll be aiming for as a potential streaming time, and I'll probably only go for about an hour till 6. If I can start a little bit earlier, I might start live streaming at around 4, half 4. Keep an eye out on my Twitter, FPL__Raptor, and on Twitter, on the YouTube community as well. I'll keep you updated with respect to whether I'm doing a live stream, and then you'll know whether to tune in or not. Fingers crossed the internet holds up, and if it does, I'll definitely be streaming, and I can't wait to do that as well. Specifically my members, I can't wait to finally get you guys in the live chat as well, moderating, bouncing off you, seeing your badges, seeing your custom emojis as well. So it'll be absolutely amazing. Until next time, guys, thank you so much. Keep an eye out for my team selection video, keep an eye out for the live stream, and do subscribe down below if you haven't already. Cheers, bye-bye.